Well, hello. Welcome to the Creative Writing Live podcast, where we talk with writers from all mediums and genres about themselves, their work, and advice they have for writers. I'm your host, Paul Zeidman, and my guest today is novelist, screenwriter, and television executive producer, Lois Buchter. Lois, welcome to the Creative Writing Live podcast.
Thank you very much, Paul. So nice to actually meet you in person. Yes.
Digitally, if
Yes.
you want to call it that way. Yeah, we're going to be talking with Lois today. She, in addition to all of her writing experience and her broadcasting experience, she has a new. I guess I'm trying to think the best way to describe it. It's like an educational service.
A children's educational television series. So we just did the first season. Drawing Magic is the name of the show, and it's geared for children 5 to 10, teaching them the art and craft of drawing.
Okay, well, we will get more into those details in just a minute. And for those familiar with this show, we like to start things off talking about things we may have read or watched lately. How did we feel about it? Liked it, hated it, indifferent? I'll go first just to give Lois a little time to collect her thoughts. But she told me before we started, she's already got them ready to go, but I'll still go first. So it was recommended on my Netflix homepage because my wife and I enjoy the cozy British mystery. So we watched the Thursday Murder Club, which I thought it was a series, but it's just a film, but it was still very enjoyable and some great acting from the leads, especially Helen Mirren. And I think, I'm guessing all of the technology in our house decided, oh, you'd like this. You'll probably, if this popped up on my computer, you'll like this other thing. And it was The After Party, which is a series on Apple TV. And that is it's a limited series. It's 2 seasons, and it's a murder mystery, and everything is told from all of the participants' point of view, but each episode is done in a specific kind of film genre. So like one is the romantic comedy, and one was an animated thing, and like in the second series there was it was done like in a film noir style, and it was really entertaining and very clever. And I actually figured out who did it in the first one, and my wife already knew. She's really good at that. She was better about it for the second one, but I had suspicions. But so we're finished with those, and so that was really enjoyable. And I just finished watching a really long documentary on Disney Plus called Get Back, which is about the Beatles and about them putting together what eventually became the Let It Be album and also leading up to their final performance, the one they did on the roof at Abbey Studios. And it was just fascinating to watch. And like, all this, a lot of the songs, and just watching them go through the process of creating these songs and fine tuning them and just kind of screwing around when they're between recording sessions type of thing. It was just a lot of entertaining material. I really enjoyed it a lot. There's some other stuff on Disney about the Beatles, which I'll probably eventually get to. But that's it from my end. So Lois, what about you?
Well, I went and saw the Thunderbolts recently, and I really loved David Har. Is it Hargraves?
Harbor, David
Harbor.
Harbor.
David Harbor. Oh my gosh, he was so. It was just so enjoyable, so flawed and so enjoyable. Yeah, just laugh out loud. And then, of course, I went recently watched the Lost Bus.
Oh, okay.
That's about the Paradise Fire and Matthew McConaughey. And I lived in Chico when I first moved to California just several years ago, and so I moved right after the fire. So it was very emotional for me watching that, but it was just, of course, done very, very well. And big reader, I just read fantasy Kelly Hart's Quicksilver, which I think they are moving into a script film mode. Just excellent book. It was well done. Just the characters were just, it was just well done on all counts. I couldn't find anything wrong with it. In fact, I read it twice, which I never do. So anyway, it's called Quicksilver. And those
What genre does that fall under?
fantasy, it was fantasy.
And like I mean, like Lord of the Rings fantasy or like Piers
Uh,
Anthony fantasy.
a little more Lord of the Rings fantasy, but yeah, a little bit of magic, a little bit of romance, but yeah, just I love the characters, I love the setting, I loved everything on it. It was just well done.
Oh, that's fantastic. So Lois, but like we already kind of covered this briefly at the start of the show, that we talked a little bit about your background, novelist, screenwriter, and working in television. So like, how did you get your start? Were you always a writer? Were you a voracious reader as a child and thought, I want to take a stab at this myself?
Always the voracious reader. Never had a dream of working in film or I'd never done a college thesis. I'd never, writing. No, that was for, as I always say, the other people. I just I've always been incredibly creative, whether that be drawing, painting, any sort of. I'm a a stitcher. I have pieces in the National Cathedral in DC. I am always pushing the boundaries. I sculpt in clay and marble, just and stained glass. I've done all that for years and years. But yeah, the writing thing came out of nowhere, and it was a family story that just got me on that journey. And for 10 years, I pushed away the writing side because I kept saying, no, it's too big. Writing a story about World War II, no, that's I can't do that. And so I listened to the negative voice, and I don't do that anymore. So for all of you out there, there is no boundaries. Just sit down and find people to help you and get started. It's just putting your butt in the chair and getting going. I remember first time I was actually sitting down at the computer, I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. But it just little by little it came together, and I finished that World War II novel. It took me 7.5 months to get a first draft, and then it was 7 rewrites that I had to do.
Did it eventually get published, or was it
It
more?
did with a little
Okay.
boutique press. I had Huffman Mifflin had it. Curtis Brown was interested in it for a little bit, and I got all excited. But every time I went down that rewrite hole, it was a heavy story, and so it would affect me mentally and
Hmm.
emotionally. And screenwriting was my access. It was my fun place. It was a place to play. So I'd rather do that.
I was going to say, how did you make that transition from novels and prose to writing for screenplays?
I knew nothing about screenwriting. I knew nothing about the art at all. And that was more than 20 years ago. And I got books and books because I can read, and I figured out formatting and started taking classes, eventually went through a 2 year, basic course, which was a little bit elevated, and then took a 2 year advanced mastery course. And so I feel like I have a college degree in screenwriting, but I learned so much during the process, and I don't stay in the genre. I don't stay in my lane. Stories come to me from all over, and I just love it. And now I'm back. Since COVID, I got back into novel writing, and I really, really enjoy it.
Okay, that's great. It's fantastic that you're just able to continuously channel all of this creative energy into so many different mediums.
Yes, and sometimes I'm a crazy person, but even in my creative world, I'm usually working on 3 projects at once, and I will go through it and ooh, look at this, it's nice and bright and shiny until something else catches my eye and it's bright and shiny. A little ADHD maybe in there, but it's always been the creative world, always.
Okay, so as we also mentioned that you've also worked in television, more behind the scenes. And so was that something, because I think you mentioned you did it in school. So was that kind of like always in the background, or was it kind of like, I'm just going to dabble in television a little bit?
Kind of. It was at a woman in film Christmas party. I met my director Susan Boyle there years ago, and she said, "Why aren't you back in school? Why aren't you studying screenwriting? Why aren't you going after your cinematography?" And I had moved, and I was real close to the college that offered this really great program, and I said, "I don't know." And a month later, I was in school, did that back in 2017 and 18, and just I loved it. It was so enriching. And so while there, I worked on a student-run television news program, and it was like, oh, once you step in that studio, after the first 20 times, you're like, okay, I got it, I got it. Just don't
Sure.
make me work the board, but okay, I got it.
Of course, of course. You said that you really fell in love with doing it. I mean, what was the appeal? What was it that, excuse me, just really grabbed you about it?
It was different every week. It was different each time. I learned, I love to learn. I've always been a little bit nuts on that side, and that I love to research and get out of my way and just hand me the book or let me dig into it. And I think that's part of the appeal with the writing side too, because there is a side of research to every one of the stories I dig into, and I love history. I love the process, that you
Hmm.
create something and don't, you always have a glimmer of what it is, whether it be writing or physical creative projects, but my projects always turn out so much better than I expected. And that's something I have no fear anymore. I've lost,
Oh,
yeah.
that's great. And I also imagine that with all the research that you do for all of your different projects, that you always find yourself having so much leftover or material that you don't end up using.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah. It's a fun process and uh little bits of stardust that go into the next project. Yeah,
Hmm.
or the 4 or 5 down the road. Yes,
That's right. There's always something that you can, put off to the side and bring it in later for something else.
exactly.
The definitive writer scenario. So let's talk a little bit about your current project, Drawing Magic. You did a little teaser about it earlier, but can you kind of go into a little more detail, like what is it and what was the inspiration for wanting to do it?
Well, during COVID, I took a break and I was trying to say, okay, what is my next step? If all the planets align, what would I like to do? And I kept coming back to this concept of a television program for kids on creativity and drawing. And I had the largest art education drawing school in Texas for 7 years during my work history. And I loved it. I loved watching that aha moment. I dealt mostly with kids in that 5 to 10 range, but I also started age 3. I even had some 2.5-year-olds through adult. So it was, getting that focus concentration and getting kids engaged in something that feeds their brain because it is all muscle memory. And when I was back in school, I did a prototype to see if this program, would it transfer well to a digital film product doing a drawing class. And there's no cutesy, no fun. There is fun because it's always fun to do that, but it's not busy work. They're
Hmm.
actually truly learning. And the program that I did was based on Dr. Howard Gardner's work with how the brain and hand communicate and breaking objects down into the 5 elements of shape. So anyone can learn to draw. We always have, adults are the ones that are scared. The kids aren't. The adults say, I can't draw. I didn't get that gene. Well, it's anybody can do it because just like anyone can learn to play the piano, it's
Mm.
it's all about that muscle memory and what to look for. For instance, if I want to draw a tree, and maybe I'm even looking at the tree, and I say, I want to draw that tree, I'm telling my brain the wrong command. And I need to break it down into all the gentle curve lines on that tree. And that relaxes the brain because your brain is like a computer. It's going to flash through every picture of a tree you've ever seen, millions and millions, and it's saying which one. Meanwhile, you're saying that tree right there. But no, if you just break it down into the 5 elements of shape, which is the circle, the dot, the straight line, the curved line, and the angle line, that anything can be drawn. And your brain will then send that right syntax out to your hand. And, getting kids engaged. There are kids that, well, people that have innate abilities just automatically, just in almost any medium, people who can sit down and play the piano, and people who can sit down and draw, and their brain already processes it in that methodology. But just it takes practice, just like learning to play the piano. The more you do it, the more you recognize those elements and shape when you're out in everyday life and you're saying, oh, look at the straight lines on that building, or look at the arch on that, look at that curve line. Just those little things help that muscle memory and that syntax build. And, it's your brain. Our kids are out there in this digital world now, losing focus concentration unless it is a digital thing. And that's because they have fed the brain to want that digital thing.
Mm.
And focus concentration is an important thing. And I just got into it with my kids, and I went, yes, I'm going to do this TV show. That's what I'm going to do. And yeah, we filmed the whole first season. My goal is to do 5 seasons in all, and one season that will be for younger children. And I'm hoping that will give them some of the skill sets and some of the positive affirmation that they can do the project. And when I would have my classrooms, each kid would do a different background and they would have the main subject, but the parents would come in and say, they're all different. How did you do that? How did you And it's the kids get it that, they would get very excited and learning about the subject matter and knowing that process of how to teach. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say you talked about how the kids are not necessarily fearless in trying these new things, and adults are much more, oh no, I can't do that because kids don't have that experience. They just think, oh, this sounds like it'd be fun. I'm going to try it, and it looks like it's going to be fun. I'm going to try it. Whereas adults are like, oh, I can't draw, and that's where it ends. Whereas kids, that they're much more open to
Yes.
trying it, especially if it's made to be enticing. It's very, this is something that you can do that's fun and it's easy. And once you learn how to do it, you'll really enjoy doing it. And I think that really resonates with a younger audience.
I do too. And during all the camps that we had and special projects that we did, kids want the latest superhero, they want dinosaurs, they want, the only thing I didn't do in my class is actually do lessons on different cats and dogs because if I put up a Siamese cat, then someone would say, "Well, my cat is a tabby," or and it
Yeah.
was hard to get that. And drawing noses, long noses on dogs is a little more advanced, but yeah, it's just giving them those skill sets and saying, "Okay, as it builds, we're going to go through this class, and we're going to learn." And I also do a lot of work with color blending with colored pencils because kids in that 5 to 10 age range, they want things are one color.
Hmm.
A tree is green. No, how many different, hundreds of greens do you see in that tree?
Hmm.
And how can we blend that? So that's part of the magic and making things happen. I just had such a good time developing the show and making it happen. For a long time, I worked behind the scenes. I was like, no, I'll get one of my instructors to teach it. And I finally just said, no, Lois, you've got to do it. You've got to be the you know it. Just get up there and do it. So
And Les was Miss Lois born.
yes, yes, yes.
So you actually kind of just touched on this briefly. So how did you put not necessarily the whole show together, but I guess the episodes? Like how many episodes are in the first season? Was
Uh,
it
there's
10?
there's 13 in the first
13.
season, and they're all in that 22-minute kind of range because for distribution to television networks, they want it in that sweet spot so they can put their lead-ins and their cuts and the commercial breaks in.
Mhm.
And yeah, we actually filmed 15, but we brought it down to 14, and so we have an extra one. We're getting ready to do some marketing on the project, and I'm just I'm very excited about how great it came out. In fact, one of my cameramen, he was commenting, oh, only his kids have, his one daughter, he's, really a drawer, and he doesn't draw. And he went home, he brought in the paper, look, because he got motivated while watching the process.
That is excellent. One of the things we kind of talked about this before we started today was that even though this is an educational series about drawing, but to me, just reading about it, and I haven't seen them because they're not available yet, there are a lot of parallels with writing. And some of the things I noticed that you mentioned, I think, in part of your pitch is that it's not about instant success, attention to detail, and staying with the process even when it feels tricky. And tricky to me is a very interchangeable word. There are many other words, some a little more adult that that we were willing to go into, but I think it really applies to the whole creative aspect of it all. That, as you're a writer too, so you know that, the first draft is going to be terrible. And if you're going to do rewrite after rewrite. But the more you do it, it's like a muscle. The more you work that creative writing muscle, that the better your writing is going to be. And I imagine that when someone, especially maybe an 8-year-old, starts off with drawing, that maybe they're frustrated because what they're drawing doesn't look like what they want it to look like. But I'm sure you're there to say, okay, well, don't don't get discouraged. It's your first try. Nobody does it perfectly on the first go. That you have to practice. You have to, learn to like really understand the angle and the circle and the dot and the curved lines and all of that sort of thing. And I imagine that was I guess, your creative writer brain like influencing how you put the show together.
It did. It really did. And I learned that, for 10 years, I gave myself some negative internal dialogue when I started looking for someone to write my World War II story. And I kept saying, you're not the writer. You're the reader. You're not the writer. So I've really paid attention in these last 15 years on internal dialogue and giving myself positive affirmations. So when I went to put the show together, it's going to be great. It'll morph into something like I said, all my projects turn out better than I expect. And problem solving is a big part of drawing, and problem solving is a big part of writing as
Mm,
well. Um, when I'm drawing, for instance, when I was drawing with the kids doing an octopus, I had one arm that looked a little too skinny. And so I showed them how to change that, how to modify that drawing. Same thing, all those 7 years of teaching kids, and I had thousands of kids I taught. I only had one that was just so dedicated. It had to be perfect, and
oh.
but for the most part, kids are okay. And I said, okay, we do a main object. I said, where do you want to put it? Like a hot air balloon. Where do you want to place that hot air balloon? And it could be over a Grand Canyon. It could be over a dinosaur graveyard. It could be over, Mars. It could be over anything. And you could watch the kids just light up as
Hmm.
something came to mind, something that they had a real affinity for. And same thing where I like everything in my drawing. At the end of class, I'd have kids hold up their drawings and I'd say, we're not going to comment, but everybody look how different everybody's drawing is. And because we have a tendency to judge, art is very subjective. What
Hmm.
I like, somebody else might not like, and that's part of the creative process. And so I know even with my writing, I'm writing this for the few people that are going to like it and the people that are going to love it. And I'm not going to worry about the other people. I really kind of stay in that positive mindset, and it's affected every aspect of what I do. And I'm hoping that one takeaway that people that are creative is listen to that internal a message that you give yourself. You can do it. It will morph into something beautiful. Those positive words. I wake up in the morning and I say it's going to be a great day, even when I don't feel like it in the middle of a move like I was doing last week. But it really does help. And I like I said, I have no fear.
Hmm.
Kids, when they would have something that I like everything, but I don't like the way this came out, one little piece. I said, well, we can turn that into a bush, or we can
Hmm.
change that into something else, or we can modify it with colors. And yeah, so that's just the way I roll.
Sure, sure. I also like the part of your pitch that says that drawing is good for the brain. And I guess to me, that could be expanded to creativity is good for the brain.
It really
That,
is, and it activates a muscle memory. And just like video games activates muscle memory, you
hmm.
want it. There's a need there. I call it the creative beast. And I always thought, if I can just get this project done, the beast will stop roaring in my head and I can relax for a little bit. But what I have found over these 30 years of really pushing creativity is that the beast always wants more. And
Yeah, exactly.
it always wants more. It's yeah, people, I go to writers' workshops and they say, oh, well, I just can't get motivated. I'm like, are you kidding? I like they're screaming at me. I have like 5 projects I could work on, and I just
Hmm.
have to decide what to do next. Last year, I wrote 3 novels. I did one already this year. So I mean, I am prolific. I keep pushing that beast.
Yeah, there's always that because I've experienced this, especially dealing with people who are just starting out as writers. They're like, "Well, I don't know what to write." And I just think that's not something I've ever had to deal with
Yeah, me either.
because I think maybe like when I started, I had some ideas, but it took me some time to realize that there's no limit to how many ideas you can have. You may not be able to get to all of them, but you can at least write them down for future use. That maybe you're working on one thing and you're just feeling a little stuck on that. You think, you know what? I could always go back and see what else I've got, and maybe I'll work on that, and maybe I'll see some progress, or maybe it'll inspire something from that original project.
That's right. That's right. One of the workshops I took was I had to come up with 300 high concept ideas in a month. And you know that when you first hear that, you go like,
Wow,
what?
300.
300, but it was 10 a day.
Yeah,
You had to write them down and you had to pull and everybody had a different life experience, so everybody had different ideas, but looking for those jewels. After I did that for 30 days, I actually came up, I had 17, and of those 17 I really had six that I considered very high concept. And it was so daunting at first. I'm like, what
sure.
and but it's you never know what's going to happen. I keep that list. I keep a running list anytime I have an idea,
Hmm.
and I pull from that. You go to writers' workshops or screenwriting workshops, and they're like, "Well, I could turn this into a screenplay." Yes, but it's Hollywood changes it's on like the thimble tip. It just
Sure,
twists
sure.
and turns, and what is good right now they won't want in 2 years. But yeah, I submitted a graphic novel to a publishing house last week, and it was. I found out about it. It was an open submission, and I went, "Wait a minute! I have one! I have one! I did that! I did that 5 years ago."
No file is truly closed,
No,
apparently.
no.
You also included that creativity isn't just for artists, which I think is brilliant. Could you kind of go into that a little bit?
It, how can I say it? To me, it is that sparkling cloud that kind of surrounds me. I have found creativity in almost everything I do. It is unlimited possibilities. Um, I find that the more I feed my inner dialogue, the more my creative outlook blooms. And it goes into everything, whether I'm sightseeing, looking at architectural ornamentation, or traveling to a new country and looking at the creative works that are present there, and how did they do that? And then I get into my research mode, but to me, it's connected in everything I do.
No, that's fantastic. I love that. So let's also go into a topic that has been definitely covered on this podcast before, and it played a big role in making drawing magic happen, is the crowdfunding.
Oh, whoa.
I,
Yeah.
I, I know.
I know
So,
we went back and forth a little on that.
oh yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah, I know.
So can you kind of, you don't have to go into too much detail, but how is it putting the whole program together, or the whole campaign together for you? I mean, did you take it? I assume you did not take it on yourself. I think you also mentioned earlier you had like a social media person. And also I guess people like to help behind the scenes on the technical aspect of the show.
Yes, and I hired my producer, and my production company was Wild Philly Films, and they're in Sacramento. And they was Sally Forcier and Kim Kaplan, and Kim was the guru on the crowdfunding. She had done several campaigns before. I wanted it to look professional on spot. And so, as part of my production team, I hired them to help me with the campaign as well, because I knew I couldn't juggle everything, and
Hmm.
that's part of my experience from being in the studio before with TV production. You hire good people, and you sit back and let them do their magic. You don't get in the way. And they were absolutely wonderful to work with, and they believed in the project, and getting them. It was an all-woman production. And I really like that aspect of things as well. And I believe in the work that they're doing. They support me. I support them. And but would I do another crowdfunding? I don't know. It was a lot of work.
I,
Yeah,
I
a
I can vouch for
lot of
that
work.
from my perspective about
Yeah.
crowdfunding. Yes, it's a lot of work. What were some of the important details that you wanted to include or mention as part of your crowdfunding campaign? I guess especially as it applies to drawing magic. Was it about, here's the educational benefit, here's the fun aspect of it, here's why it would be worth your while to invest in it?
It was a little of all of that. And I really got into a little bit more about the science of how we learn, and getting that word out, because I didn't want people to say, "Oh, it's just another little scribbling, cartoony program," because this truly teaches children how to how to draw. And, you know, that's a gift. Drawing is the foundation for a lot of creativity and the visual world. And giving them, hey, I was able to do that. When I was a kid, someone taught me how to draw a palm tree. And man, I had it on remember we used to have book covers? I had it on every book cover. Man, I showed everybody how to do it. And it was quite an easy process. But once I got that done, I was like, hey, you can do it. Anybody can draw a palm tree, and let me show you. That's that's part of how I guess I got started there. I think I got lost in that. Did I answer that?
Oh, no, no, that was fun.
Yeah.
And that, of course, raises the inevitable follow-up question, or is one of the lessons in drawing magic about how to draw a palm tree?
It was my first one. I had to make it that one because it was just so much fun because you could put anything in the background with palm tree. You know, sharks in the water, you know, things on the beach,
Sure.
shells, just all sorts of fun stuff. So yes, I knew exactly when I came up with the lessons, what the first one would be. And
Wow.
that I would have to do a dinosaur. Yeah.
Of course, of course. So, as we said, so the campaign was successful, and you were able to produce the series. So, did the crowdfunding cover everything, or were there unexpected surprises, as is often the case, especially
Oh
with this
no,
kind of production?
crowdfunding only covered a little less than half, and the rest I put out of my own pocket to
Hmm.
get this thing going. And studio time is expensive, but you know, getting good people and getting it tightly done was key. Yeah, I'm very happy with how it worked out. I talked to. I thought initially I would hopefully get this going to a PBS, portal and with the changes in PBS. But I did talk to the local representative with PBS, and he was telling me how much his each production cost, over $30,000 for each episode. And I was like, oh, well, this is going to be much cheaper to do.
Hmm.
But yeah, I could have done this as something. I do have a YouTube channel, and I'm hoping kids will post to Drawing Magic TV their finished projects, and I'll have some other fun little snippets. I'm going to do a series of small little. Here's where to get started. If you want to draw this, this is where you get started. You know, just those 20 to 30-second little videos, and I'll be posting some of those. That'll be the next thing that I do. But yeah, it's strange the way life turns, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's been a great ride.
it is. Okay, so you said that so season one is complete, so 13 episodes.
Yes.
So, and you said you want to do four more season or series or seasons.
Right. And each season will be on one continent. So I
Hmm.
followed this to a Montessori kind of template. Montessori classrooms, they have their lesson plans in a continent-based curriculum. And I thought that was a great way to do it. So the first season was North America. Then we'll do South America and Africa, the Arctic, and Europe. And so animals, flora, and fauna from those areas. And yeah, I'm really excited that this has a potential to go international because, drawing doesn't have a language barrier. And
Right.
once kids learn that it's these five things, they can follow along without a language barrier. So I like
That
that.
sounds fantastic. I also love the idea that not only did you talk about having it on television and I guess on streaming, but also the idea of having it as an option on airplanes.
Yes, yes.
I just think that's brilliant.
Yeah, and I'm hoping to partner with a couple manufacturing so I can do a little tiny drawing kit the kids, that will be available in a bookstore. I mean, the little Hudson News or whatever it is that they
Right.
report that kids, if they want to do that, and that they'll be able to take that along because quiet, focused attention on an airplane. Yes, we need that for kids, don't we? We really need that for kids.
I was gonna say, I think the parents would really, really appreciate that too. So Lois, so tell us, where can people find out more about drawing magic?
Well, I have a website called drawingmagictv.com, and I'm on Facebook, Drawing Magic TV, social, Instagram, um, and all those major ones, Twitter, that sort of thing. But yeah, just follow me and I'll keep everybody apprised. But pick up the finished reel tomorrow. And I am excited to look at distribution. even going to step my toes into the market, into the buying market in Las Vegas in April and see if I can sell it that way as well. But
Okay, we've established that the episodes are not available to the public, but you did say that you have a YouTube channel. Do you have like snippets or little pieces of episodes there?
that's going to be coming. Yes, my editor was is also my director, and she's going to put up some little pieces, some little teasers. So we'll have that. I would like to also expand my website on Dry Magic TV to include some teacher education packs. So, if someone wanted to download and teach this class to a group of students, that they could do it. It would be warm-up lessons, and warming up the hand and brain before you sit down to draw is a very important part of getting that message syntax to go consistently. So I teach kids that when they get started, get in a comfortable place with good lighting and try not to have too much noise in the background. We don't want music playing with lyrics because then they're saying the lyrics
Mm,
instead, and we
right.
really want them to concentrate on those 5 elements of shape and to get comfortable. So practice drawing circles. And every time you make that stroke, say circle. Every time you do a straight line, say straight line in your head. And that reinforces that message. And for kids, I would also say when you're out in the car, it's a great exercise. We used to play I Spy in the car
Mm,
with the kids, but no,
sure.
it's who sees straight lines. I had one funny incident that happened when I had the school, and I had a 5-year-old and a 7-year-old in one of my classes, and the mom had a 2-year-old. And so I was explaining to her how well this applies for in the car. You can ask them to look for those things. Headlights are dots. A circle is empty, but a dot is roundish and filled in. And we were going through a lot of that, and I was pointing in the classroom, different dots and circles and that sort of thing. And it's all about how your brain transfers that information. And she came in the next week, and she was just dying laughing. And she said, "Lois, I did that with the kids in the car, and we were pointing at things." And she said there was this long, quiet pause, and all of a sudden the 2-year-old shouts, "Dad!" But he did it with a real guttural, and just the 2-year-old got it, what they were trying to do. And she said, "I almost had an accident. It scared me." So yeah, kids get into that sort of thing.
Hmm.
It's a wonderful creative life. To me, is a wonderful way of being. Yeah.
That's fantastic. Lois Bookter, we've been talking with today, and her website is drawingmagictv.com on several of the social platforms as well. Lois, thank you so much for being here today. This was wonderful.
Thank you. And for those who want to follow my writing, I'm loisbuchter.com, and it's Buchter. Yeah. But yeah, thank you, Paul.
Oh, my pleasure. And viewers and listeners, if you enjoyed today's show, you can please hit like, feel free to leave a comment and subscribe. You can check out my social media, starting with my screenwriting blog, Maximum Z at maximumz.blog. For Twitter, I'm at maximum_Z. And for Blue Sky and Instagram, it's at Pez Screenwriting. And this show has its own social accounts as well, at Podcast CWL on Twitter and also on Blue Sky. And feel free to check out my screenwriting books. Go ahead and ask the series on Amazon. Like I said, that's Lois. I'm Paul. This has been the Creative Writing Life podcast. Thanks for listening. Stay safe, stay healthy, and most importantly, go write something or draw something.